1963. Leaders and supporters of civil rights organizations joined in Washington, D.C. to make a passionate plea for jobs and freedom. More than 200,000 people arrived from across the nation for the march from the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial. It was a triumphant day for A. Philip Randolph, who first proposed such a march in 1941. But as the marchers gathered at the Lincoln Memorial, there was trouble behind the scenes. The White House was upset about a speech that was to be given by John Lewis, national chairman for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
In the first part of the speech, I said something like, we cannot support the proposed bill being introduced or being presented by President Kennedy, for it was too little and too late.
And John's speech was the only speech at the March on Washington that criticized the Kennedy administration for lack of civil rights enforcement because the SNCC people were being brutalized in the South.
As the program began on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Lewis refused to change his speech. Finally, A. Philip Randolph made a personal appeal to the young men from SNCC.
He was 75, and here we were, 1/3 his age, and, he was asking us to do this for him. He said, I waited all my life for this opportunity. Please don't ruin it. And we felt that for him that we had to make some concessions.
So the three of us, John Lewis, Cortland Cox, and myself, we huddled and sat together, and the rewriting took place at the Lincoln Memorial, and and it was done out of a spirit of unity. We wanted the March on Washington to go forward.
If we do not get meaningful legislation out of this Congress, the time will come when we will not confine our marching to Washington. We will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom, and we want it now.
The speech that captured the nation's attention was the stirring oratory of Martin Luther King.
Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring in Whitney Capital. When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
In the White House, President Kennedy now saw the march as positive support for his civil rights bill. "18 days later, Birmingham, Alabama. Just before a Sunday morning service, a bomb exploded at the 16th Street Baptist Church where hundreds of children had once gathered to march against police dogs and fire hoses. 15 people were injured. 4 children were killed. The murder of these children shook the nonviolent movement to its core. As the people buried their dead, they sang, "We shall overcome." But in anger and in rage, many wondered how.